Hi, I'm Joan Mullinax, and I'm a career and personal counselor with Edens Counseling Group. And I want to welcome you to this presentation. I've been doing career counseling for almost 15 years now. And I was going to talk about a couple of logistics, but I think we don't need that for the approach where you're taking now. So the agenda for what we're talking about tonight is we're going to talk about that the world of careers is changing. I'm going to show you the old model. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what has changed. And then I'm going to give you one of many, but a useful new model. And then we're going to spend the bulk of the time talking about using the new model. And then if you have any questions, you can submit them on the chat. Okay, so the first model that we've got is from about, well, actually the beginning of my career, since I have gray hair, was long enough ago that this was actually the model at the time that I started my career. It changed in the middle. So, and this is getting increasingly rare, is this model of the career ladder. And let me describe what that looks like. So the career ladder, in the past, the entire career it was the same career. You started out at entry level, you climbed the ladder, and then you retired and got your gold watch, and they sent you off with a festive party. Also, in the past, you could start in one company at entry level and work there until retirement. That is getting even more rare than climbing the ladder in the same career. So what's changed? So careers are changing. There's been a rapid change in technology, and it's an ongoing change in technology. It's like the rate at which new knowledge is being generated is faster than any time in the history. Like basically, every year we're creating as much new knowledge as existed in the entire previous history of mankind. Careers are increasingly specialized. Some careers are declining or even disappearing. And this points to the necessity of updating your knowledge and your skills on an ongoing basis. So you can't just hang around and be comfortable with what you already knew, because if you do, the world will move underneath you and you'll suddenly discover that you don't have any solid ground to stand on. So jobs are also changing. So company loyalty to employees is less common. In fact, it's not uncommon these days for people who are on the verge of retirement to suddenly be seen as too expensive and high overhead, and all of a sudden they are asked to retire, in some cases before their retirement benefits kick in. So you can see what has happened to loyalty in that scenario. There's also something that's called the just-in-time workforce. So it's like, I don't need 1,000 people right now. I need 80 people for this project, and 70 people for this project, and 90 people for this project. And maybe sometime during the process, with all the projects we've going on, it'll add up to 1,000 people. But then this project will fall off, and this project will fall off, and then companies are more likely to be using contract employees, and so they just they end their contracts, and the people go on and pick up work for other companies. Okay, so you bring in the workforce just in time that you need it, and then you let it go when you're done. Right now, what's happening is the hiring process is actually booming for people with knowledge and skills right now. There's a lot of hiring going on, but one of the things that's going on is that employers, rather than maybe necessarily commit to a long-term employee, they're offering bonuses to bring people in, and then if they have to let them go, then that money then drops away as an expense for them. So also the qualifications for a given occupation, for a given job posting, they are very frequently focused on best fit applicant for their needs that they posted. So you can come in and have 90% of the qualifications and you may get an interview, and yet you won't get the job because you met 90% and they found somebody who met 95% or 98%. So sometimes you have to refresh your knowledge to match what the postings are, so that you're able to make yourself the best fit person for the job. So it's really essential for you to track the job market in the area that you work in. Notice whether it's growing or shrinking or flattening out, and then honing your skills and your knowledge, and then communicating your match to the requirements. So I've used some really fairly old examples here in terms of transitions, in terms of careers, but these are very visible kinds of transitions, whereas the transitions in computer technology are a little hard to show on a slide and make them make sense. So back in the days, when I was in high school, there was this massive strike at the Houston Chip Channel against containerized shipping. So there were stevedores that worked on the docks, and they loaded things by boxes, one box at a time, filling up the cargo holds with the boxes, and then going back to the dock to get more boxes. And that's not what's happening anymore. So what we've got instead is we've got these boxcar size containers, and you'll notice that this is a semi truck here, if you can't tell from the picture. And then we've got basically a heavy duty forklift. And so you've got a forklift driver and you've got a truck driver, and you'll notice, at least in this picture, those are the only two people on the dock. Now, obviously this is, for a picture, that there's nothing else happening on this dock except for loading this one particular container. But then they will take these containers. This is a container that's probably come in on a ship. It's being loaded on a truck to be transported locally, or this could be being removed from the truck to be transported onto a container ship, where they pile the containers stunningly high on the ships. So a big transition here, and the skill factors are a big transition as well, and people lost their jobs over this. Here's another one, typing jobs, where it's like a clerk typist, something like that. So this nice, neat desk that all I've got to do is my typing stuff and answer the phone. Those jobs are beginning to decline, and now everybody is doing their own typing. So you'll notice here, this person's got a nice thick book. They've got, a pen that they're writing on a pad of paper for something that's not text-based, and then they're typing with their other hand. Even executives use keyboards these days. That used to be absolutely taboo. That was just beneath them, and that's not the way it is anymore. Manufacturing automation. So here you've got some specialized factory automation, factory construction, where you have specialized people constructing this very unique and specific device. When you get into the situation where the devices, where what's being built is a standard product, you start getting into automated factories. So you'll notice there are no human beings in this picture of the factory. Now, there are human beings in the factory. They are programming the automated equipment. They are monitoring the automated line flow. They are identifying problems and solving problems. But you'll notice that once again, the skill level has gone up in order to maintain a job, even in a manufacturing environment. Now, there are small companies that may be doing things more from a manual perspective, but certainly in large companies, the automated manufacturing has really taken off. So So what do we need to do about this? So our career ladder doesn't work anymore in this kind of scenario because it's a moving target. So what we've got here is the career development cycle. And I personally have gone around this cycle about 3 times. So since I graduated from college with a degree in computer science and worked for 15 years in new product development in the computer industry at Compaq, now known as HP. And then at some point that career ended and I started teaching computers at the community college. So career number 2, using my existing skills and then adding some additional skills to go with it. Of course, I'd already done a lot of training and things like that while I was in the computer industry, so that was a pretty good fit. And then another transition. So now I'm a career counselor and a personal counselor, and this required, significant new training for me to get the state certification as a licensed professional counselor. So you can go around this wheel multiple times. Most people show up in my office here in this upper right-hand corner where they're doing career or life planning. They're doing some kind of evaluation or reevaluation, and they're considering making a transition. Now I'm going to, because this is fairly small font on this, I'm actually going to skip over to individual slides for each of these, but this is basically the outline we're following, with the exception of this bar right here, and there's something missing from that bar. Okay, so career life planning, self-assessments, career exploration, decision-making, implementing your choice, success at work, and then you may end up back at this point again. So career life planning. So an evaluation or reevaluation, considering making a transition. So factors that may be driving the evaluation or reevaluation include internal factors. I want more of this and less of this. I want to do less product development and more people development. That was a key transition for me. External. COVID's a perfect example of an external career factor. It drove people, some people out of their jobs, some people into their homes to work, but it definitely changed the rules of the game as far as the job market was concerned. Career development is also a factor that can drive reevaluation. So what do I want my next steps to look like? So a kind of prototypical example of this would be somebody who is trained as a bachelor's in engineering, and they're trying to decide whether they want to grow on the technical path or whether they want to maybe get an MBA and transition to the management path. So that's kind of a signature case of what do I want my next step to look like in my career. This also can be affected by life phase issues. So I've included a very short list here. In truth, the list is much longer than this. So it could include a serious relationship. It can include getting married. It can include having kids. It can include kids starting school, kids starting college, kids ending college. And these days, even retirement is frequently a career event, because people my age we're not ready to quit. we're having too much fun. So so one of the things that I do is support people who are transitioning out of a current career and looking at what they want their retirement career to look like. Because otherwise it can be very risky to your health not to have a good plan to keep you engaged in life after you retire. Oops, sorry, I went to. Okay, the self-assessment we look at is personality, and we're using the Myers-Briggs type indicator, and this focuses on your preferences. So where do you prefer to focus your attention and get energy? How do you prefer to take in information? How do you prefer to make decisions? And how do you prefer to orient yourself toward the external world? You may have encountered versions of this, freebies on the internet that are, you'll come up with one of 16 personality types. I use not only the real Myers-Briggs, but I use the advanced real Myers-Briggs, which tells you not only your 16 personality types you have, but also individual differences in type. So we get a very much richer picture than you get from the freebie the freebie ones. Okay, interest. We use the strong interest inventory, and that's about what appeals to you. The Myers-Briggs, depending on how clear your preferences are, your assessment may be fairly stable over time. So the first time I took the Myers-Briggs, I was probably in my 40s, and it's never changed. I've taken it about 3 or 4 times since then, and I'm the same 4 letters every time, because it was taken at a time that I knew who I was, and that hasn't altered dramatically since then. Pretty comfortable with this. So the strong interest inventory, much more volatile, much more likely to change over time, depending on what you've been exposed to or how the world is changing. So this is about what appeals to you. So you may see something on television or online, or even in the job that you currently work in, and you go, oh my gosh, that sounds like fun. I think I'd really enjoy doing that. And so we're very interested in having you be in a job that suits you, and that feels like going to work feels like you're going home to work. And if you look at your schedule for the day, you don't go, oh, instead you go, oh, wow, great. Look who I get to work with today. So values, which are what are important to you, and strengths. And we're especially focused on strengths you enjoy using, because a recipe for burnout is using strengths you don't enjoy. So when I started working on my bachelor's degree in computer science, I did not have a good career counselor to let me know you get depressed every time you look at going into the computer industry. So I merrily went into the computer industry. I soothed my depression by saying, I don't plan to stay in this forever. I did end up staying 15 years, and I was never bored except for about 30 seconds one morning, and went, what is this strange feeling? And I went, oh, it's boredom. And then it went away. So I wasn't bored, but it was not a good match. I'm a personality type for counseling, and I was pretty much of an odd duck in the computer industry. So I'm going to talk more about these self-assessments now. Okay, so here we look at personality, interest, values, and strengths. So this is a lovely idealized model where they all overlap, and there's this sweet spot in the middle where you're going to attain career heaven. Sometimes it's not so symmetric as this, and 3 of them overlap and 1 of them doesn't, or 2 of them overlap and 2 of them don't. But if you think of career as life's work, it can include what you do for a living. It can include family and friends. It can include hobbies. It can include volunteer work. And you can kind of put together a cluster of activities that fully expresses who you are in the world, which is really what you want to be doing anyway, is, finding a way to express yourself in the things that you do with your time. So this also can tell us about what kind of work environments. So it can be as simple as indoors versus outdoors, sitting at a desk, up and moving around, working alone, working with other people, competitive environments, cooperative environments. It does not tell you toxic environments, because toxic is toxic. So one of the things I do in my job is I help people either make some adjustments in their toxic environments by some appropriate communication, or to find another environment that's not toxic, and how to identify an environment that's toxic before you go into it. Okay, so the next step in our circle is career exploration and decision making. So the career exploration part, so you can research occupations. So we've got a couple of, these are Department of Labor websites. So one is careeronestop.org, and then onetonline.org, or you can Google O*NET. One of the challenges about doing the Myers-Briggs and the Strong, one of the assets of them, is that they will give you lists of dozens of occupations to explore. So there's over 30,000 occupations. So it's going to give you dozens to look at. So it's eliminated a lot of them, said you wouldn't be interested in these at all. And sometimes entire categories of jobs are eliminated. And then but you've now got to pare that down. So, if you talk to a career counselor, they can help you manage the information overload that can happen in this process, so that you can emerge from this exploration process with 3 to 5 of the best. Now, the next step that it shows on the chart is decision making, and it's set your career goals and identify a backup plan. So that's plan A and plan B. Well, how did we get from 3 to 5 to plan A and plan B? And this is the arrow that I said something is missing on, the one that goes across the bottom of the screen. And here we're going to talk about informational interviewing. So informational interviewing is where you arrange to speak with people who work in the kind of field that you are interested in, and you interview them about what do you do on a particular day, what does a particular week look like, how did you get established in this career, what do you like about it, what do you not like about it, things like that. So I think I've got something on the next page about that. No, it's not here. Okay, let me go back to the previous one. And I think where that is in my notes. So I'm going to grab my notes real quick. Okay, so yeah, so this is the informational interviewing. You can find out about it online, but this is another one that I think is really valuable to actually talk to a career counselor about, because it's a powerful process, but it takes the right tools and the right perspective, and there's some subtleties to it that can make it work better if you actually get trained in it. So I had the good fortune of being trained in that when I made my transition out of the computer industry. Okay, now then, implementing your choice. So obtaining any education or training. So the education or training can range from, depending on what point you're at, completing high school, getting a GED, getting a technical certificate at a community college or an associate's degree from a community college, getting a bachelor's degree, and each of these have different numbers of jobs. So when you look at the occupations list, if you don't have a high school diploma, you have about 2 pages worth of jobs available to you. Once you get your high school diploma, it changes to about 30 pages. When you get your bachelor's degree, you get another 30 pages, and then graduate degree, it starts going down gradually again because it's a little bit tighter. So also, we've got the section here on apply for and accepted jobs. So I want to blow that up a little bit. So some career counselors and coaches focus specifically on job search skills and developing your job search materials. And so if that's what you need, so if that's the point at the circle that you're in, then there may be a wider variety of people that you can choose from than just a certified, licensed professional career counselor. And it may be less expensive. So also, some people get to this point and they really don't want to work for somebody else. At that point, you're going to need to talk to a business counselor or business coach. You can do this by hiring a business coach. You can also get information from the Small Business Administration or the SBA, also known as the SBA. Okay, then continue to have some success at work. Continue to update your knowledge and your skills. If you don't, you will get behind. I am now reading the 123-page Edens Counseling Group Therapist Manual that I wrote the first few pages of 10 years ago. but I haven't read the full new one. So, and it's been changing. So it's time for me to update my skills. Then continue to develop your professional network. Now, notice I fleshed this out a little bit more. So while you're in a job, you want to be developing contacts. So this can include your managers. This can include colleagues. If you end up working with vendors, it can be vendors. It can be customers. It can be family and friends, current or former classmates, contacts from your house of worship if you're involved with the house of worship. And then, of course, our new friend LinkedIn can be extremely valuable. And LinkedIn is especially valuable for introverts who prefer to communicate in writing rather than by calling people up and saying, I want to talk to you. Thank you very much. So now we're going to go back and we're going to get back to the beginning of the circle again, back to career or life planning and evaluation, reevaluation. So one of the things that I learned after about 7 years of doing this is that you file these assessments in a folder called career assessments. I have so many clients who've had to retake assessments that they've taken previously because they didn't file it under a file that they could find. So put them in a career assessment because you may want to go back and look at them. You can file them electronically or in paper format, whatever you want, but just file them under career assessments. So like I said, you can get to this reevaluation process because of inner things, outer things, life phase changes, or next steps in your career. If you've got your assessments, you can pull them out and read them. There may be something that jumps out at you that you didn't realize was so important to you. Or you may say, especially with the strong interest inventory, I'm not sure this is a good fit anymore. And maybe I should go back and take that test again. Yeah, so go back. So, and if you take a test with me, it will have on the cover sheet, it will have the name of the Edens Counseling Group, and it'll have my name, so I'll be easy to find if you want to come back and take one assessment instead of 4. Okay. Okay, well, I moved pretty quickly through this, and we had a bit of a hiccup in terms of not getting the link out to people. So I don't know if there's any questions I can think of that I would like to answer for you. So let's see if Marcus put the evaluation form in the chat. No, because we don't have anybody here. And so here's my name. Here's Edens Counseling Group's website. If I can ever be of assistance to you, one of the things that you can do with all of our therapists is you can call and this main number, and one of the schedulers can schedule you with a 15-minute free consultation with a therapist in career counseling. I definitely recommend me. I've been at it a while. Then they'll set up a 15-minute consult with you, and then they can find out more about specifically what you need, whether they're a good match for you, whether you think they're a good match for you, and then we can get you scheduled with a person that's a good match for what your needs are. Like I said, I do career and personal counseling. The Edens Counseling Group does almost any kind of counseling that you can think of. So, you know, you got eating disorder, depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, you name it, and it's probably on our list. And if it's not on our list, we also keep a database of organizations and practices that can provide services to you if we can't provide the service that you need. So that includes everything from, you know, other counselors who work in areas that we don't, or if you need a higher level of service than we can provide, we can also provide you references to higher levels of service. Because in mental health, Sometimes outpatient is exactly what you need. Sometimes what's called a IOP, and that is a intensive outpatient program. So you basically go to school or you go to work like your regular day, and then you spend your evening possibly getting in therapy group and individual counseling. If you have an eating disorder, for example, you might actually have practice meals that you go through. There are higher levels that are partial hospitalization, where you go home at night, but you spend the day at the hospital. And then there's inpatient as well. So depending on the level of struggle that you're going on, we can either provide the level of care, or we can refer you to people who provide the level of care that you're looking for. So I think that's all that I can think of to say. Let me glance over my notes and see if there's any questions so I guess one question that might come up that I didn't mention. So the current price, so this is in 2022, the summer of 2022. The current price for the basic Myers-Briggs is $50. Usually with adults, I will use the advanced Myers-Briggs. It's $100, but it gives you like 50 times as much information instead of twice as much information. The strong interest inventory is also $50. Somebody just joined us, so that's exciting. And of course, that's at the current time. Those have changed a little bit over time, but they've been reasonably stable. So